I just wanted to start this video by asking ourselves, what if we were to take a moment and look at the climate crisis in a completely different light? Not one of doom and gloom, but, a positive outlook of endless and exciting new possibilities. I wonder, what do we see when we really take the time to grasp this concept? Well, many people and companies around the world already have. They have seen or realized that this is an unprecedented opportunity, unlike anything we've ever seen in human history, not only to, save the planet, but one for innovation to reshape our future world. Be it driven for personal or social responsibility, or those people who are just business-minded and see the trends that this is where future money is to be made. Admittedly, there is life-threatening consequences and an urgent deadline, on the table, pushing us in the direction to do so, to innovate. And I think it's also fair to say, in a world, particularly for those of us who are yet to, really experience and feel the impact of climate change, we're just waking up to the fact that not one of us will escape our responsibilities of behaviors and practices to mitigate and adapt to the changing climate of the climate emergency. And we know that we need to achieve net zero. And to do so, we need to develop new ways of producing just about everything by 2050. It's a massive challenge. And this had me thinking, how is mitigation and adaptation of the climate crisis influencing designers from around the world? Hey, it's Greg. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for joining me for this episode of Greg the Artivist. Today I'm going to be taking a small trip up the tracks to visit an exciting exhibition at the Stedelijk Museum Amsterdam. It's our effing backyard, which I'm hoping is going to answer my questions from this morning and raise some more as well. So my bag's packed, it's full of camera gear, and I'm ready to head out the door, so please come along.
My name is Ingeborg De Roode. Together with my colleague Amanda Pinati, I curated this exhibition at the Stedelijk Museum Amsterdam. It's called It's Our Effing Backyard, Designing Material Futures. We were looking for pieces in which you can see that designers and companies are trying to figure out what they can do to do something against the climate crisis, which is a huge crisis, as we all know. So they have many strategies to go ahead with that. They can either use less material, use other materials, natural materials, or maybe dive into history and look which local, more craft-based materials and techniques they can use. There are experiments, but also already pieces that are on the market. So that means that we as visitors can also see what choices we can make. So it's also about raising awareness, not only with the public, but also with designers and companies. So we really hope this will make an impact. This exhibition is not only to raise awareness with the public, but also to show designers and companies what they could do to help us save the world and do things that are good against the climate crisis. But it's also, of course, to show what we as a museum can do. You know, there are always many things built for new exhibitions, but what our designers, our exhibition designers called Envisions did for us, they only used materials that are either reused, recycled or borrowed. So for example, these panels that are used in sound isolation along motorways, etc., we just borrowed the pieces that they can build new walls with. So we just borrowed it and it will go back to the producer after this exhibition. And we have vitrines that we reuse. There is aluminum that is going to be recycled and is also going back into the recycling process. So that's what was really important for us, of course, for a museum. So one of the strategies for designers is to reuse material, upgrade it, etc. And here we have one interesting example that's designed by a DJ, Peggy from Korea, together with a design office in Bali, Indonesia, space available. And well, you can see the records here, so well, it's obvious thought out by a DJ. And they took plastic that was found in Java, well, one of the islands in Indonesia, in landfills, in rivers, and it's a huge problem there. And they made this chair out of it without any screws, etc. So it means it can be recycled again later also. So that's very important. Even when you use recycled material, it's of course very important that you can recycle it again. So here we have a very new piece by Dutch designer Joris Laarman. He often designs pieces that are also well, using really new techniques, etc. And here we see his first example of printing moss. It's thought by him that he wants to print it on outside walls of buildings. So it's, well, this is of course a crazy blah blah blah, but it can get any kind of design that you can think of. And it's very good for biodiversity, the mosses, and it's also good that it also purifies air. And I think it will also, because there's water in it, of course, it will also cool probably a little bit. So it's a very new idea, and this is the really first piece he started printing. And I think that's a very interesting idea, you know, when that could really be used on big pieces of walls. Well, it will really help this climate crisis. One of the strategies that designers can take is look into local craft-based techniques that were often forgotten or, you know, evaporated because of the industrialization, colonization, etc. And here's one example by the Korean designer Yoon Seok-Hyeon, difficult name. But it's very interesting because he is using the old lacquer technique from Korea. It's called odchill. and he uses it as a glaze, in fact, over ceramics. And you would maybe ask, yeah, why is that interesting? There are many kinds of glazes, but the problem with glaze is that it's often toxic and that you cannot take it off ceramics. So ceramics is not possible to recycle. And well, if you imagine how many broken ceramic pieces there are in the world, and they just end up in landfills, it's great with this piece of in hot chill, because it can evaporate when you raise temperature. So that means when it comes off the ceramic, you can recycle ceramics. So if this could be used in a big way, you know, in industrial facilities, it would really make a very big difference. So that's why we wanted to show it here. It could really direct us into a way that will really make a difference.
So it's been a couple of days since I visited the exhibition, and I've begun editing this video already. And as always, it's given me a chance to reflect on my question that I set out to answer. How is mitigation and adaptation of the climate crisis influencing designers from around the world? Now, the focus of this exhibition is designer-selected materials, and it didn't fail in presenting striking examples from a variety of disciplines at differing stages in their development. In particular, this installation by Teresa van Dongen, Electric Life, the light is actually powered entirely by living microorganisms that need to be fed and nurtured to generate electricity. Now, how practical that is in the real world, I really don't know, but it is something that really caught my attention, and I'm interested to research more, as I found the idea absolutely fascinating. And here, still in this experimental stage, Don Yor Wanging makes decorative items from waste from the food industry. Now, these items were developed from crops such as pumpkin, watermelon, and zucchini. And then there's the impressive Mai-Kai tunnel by Mae-ling Loco. By repurposing agricultural waste and fungal mycelium into construction materials, Mae-ling's bio-based panels were grown from hemp-fed mycelium and can degrade back into soil form. And Tamara Ojala's forest wool rug is an absolutely stunning textile made from processed pine needles. Now, pine trees are the world's most important source of wood, and pine needles count for 20 to 30% of their mass. So with billions of pine needles that go unused through standard production techniques, Tamara can convert these needles into textiles, composites, and paper. Now, to be honest, I have to say I was a little cynical of what to expect from the exhibition, as we have all seen the recycled plastic chair 100 times over, and we're getting used to these kind of flashy, attention-grabbing clickbait titles using the F word. And no, that's not me being conservative, far from it. That's just my years of marketing experience. And I mean, just look at the best-selling book titles from the last 5 years and how many of them use the F word. But when I received the press pack prior to my visit, my curiosity really exploded before I even got to read about the pieces on display, because it raised and challenged my thinking about the climate crisis, which in all honesty came to me at a complete surprise. You know, the future history section of the exhibition brought to my attention the relationship of the climate, science, and European imperialism, and how research has shown that, for a large part, the roots of the climate crisis lay in colonialism. Now, all too often, especially myself, when thinking or talking about the climate crisis, it's all about the science-based evidence of the increased levels of CO2 since the Industrial Revolution. And, you know, I was kind of thinking that might just be because it's a simple evidence-based explanation that's easy for everyone to understand. And it's directly relatable to, you know, our processes of emissions nowadays, you know, how we're causing them and how they're having an effect. However, this exhibition brings to the forefront colonialism, the appropriation of land and the exploitation and destruction of not just nature, but humankind and animal life, and how this imbalance of power still exists nowadays in form of multinational companies and our governments. More so, how since the industrial technologies of the 19th century, local craft-based knowledge has been largely ignored or even become obsolete. So for me, it was really impressive and super inspiring to see how some designers are using this as their starting point. Now, although It's Our Effin' Backyard doesn't claim to be an artistic activism exhibition, rather more so a rounded, sort of balanced exhibition of creating awareness, displaying works from experimental stages to products that we can actually buy today. However, I do have criticism with two particular pieces: the IKEA PET plastic box with a lid and the Adidas made-to-be-remade trainers. And yes, if you know me by now, you know what's coming out of my mouth next: greenwashing. There is, of course, the justification for these items to appear in the exhibition, as these are big brands who make have big influence, and of course every little counts. But these brands also have extremely controversial histories and current roles with both the climate and human management. And the environment is certainly not even near the core of their business models. More so, both these multinational companies have many accounts of greenwashing held against them, to which IKEA's CEO, Jesper Broden, made the following statement: "I'm of the strong opinion that greenwashing is less dangerous than silence." Well, wrong, IKEA. IKEA is linked with illegal logging in Ukraine, to a list that goes on and on with accusations over the years of greenwashing, including its misleading claims that building its most sustainable store in 2020 was actually done on top of another sustainable store which was demolished just after 17 years of use. Greenwashing is one of the biggest threats to climate action now. It delays and misleads consumers in making the right choices, while companies continue to delay changing their business practices in the interests of profit over the well-being of life itself. It's insane. It's capitalism, of course, but profit over life? Now, my stance on any company with legal accusations, whether they're current or proven, of greenwashing is that they should be publicly denounced and banned from trading until real evidence of behavioral change and practices are made. And that is at whatever cost or mostly inconvenience this comes at. I mean, I know that I can live without IKEA and Adidas for a while, as I'm sure many people can. But that said, was my question answered by this exhibition? Well, yes, there was a broad scope of ideas, to which some of it was super inspiring. And did it ask more of me? Well, most definitely. It reminded me of the human perspective of the climate crisis over the science alone. I've already begun to learn this, of course, with my understanding of people's climate anxiety and the psychology of the climate crisis. But now adding this recognition of colonialism, it certainly reinforces to me the fragile and complex nature of everything, not only within the environment that is all intertwined, but our actions, our beliefs, and our practices from our past and our future actions between humanity and nature. And more importantly, what a fine balancing act we need to hone to achieve a life more in symbiosis with our planet. Now, just a quick disclaimer, this video was not sponsored or paid for by the Stedelijk Museum. When looking for an answer to my question, I discovered the exhibition and I wrote to them asking if they would grant me permission to film an interview there, which they accepted, and I'm entirely thankful for the generosity of the whole team there. And from arranging my visit, to guiding me around, to carrying my equipment, thank you Marilyn, to the opportunity to speak and have insight directly from curator Ingeborg. So thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. So that wraps up things for today's episode. And as always, if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed today's episode, then please do give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and click on that bell to be updated for future episodes. I cannot express enough how these simple actions go a long way in not only helping the YouTube algorithm recognize that I exist on their platform, but to put my content in front of other like-minded people. And if you'd like any more information about today's episode, please consider joining me over at Patreon. There are a ton of benefits to become a member of the Greg the Artivist community. You can read about all the different levels of membership and the benefits that each level has to offer from the link in the description box below. And finally, do also follow me over on Instagram, where you'll be able to see what I'm getting up to in between each week's episodes. So until next time, take care and remember that you too have a voice.